I'm going to close my allowing people on these kind of systems, latecomers. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so coming to our subject, the beginning of the class, we started with entrepreneur, who is an entrepreneur, and all those stuff. We started with how entrepreneurs work in India, how entrepreneurs work across the world, and so on, right? And we started with evolution of entrepreneurs, the basic purpose of who an entrepreneur is, types of entrepreneurs, growth of entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship versus entrepreneur, and all this stuff, right? And our second chapter was about entrepreneurship process, right? And process was about how entrepreneur goes through various stages, how entrepreneur starts from idea generation, evaluation, and so on. Startup, the process of evaluating business. Entrepreneur goes through a process, as I told you about people like Bill Gates, who has eventually ended up becoming a social entrepreneur. Salim, you need to mute your voice. Atulya also. Atulya also is. Yeah. So I said Atulya Das, right? Your voice needs to be on mute. Okay. So social entrepreneurs. These entrepreneurs is one of the topics I should cover today. So first two, three chapters are over, and last class, what I have been teaching is about business plan and feasibility analysis. A couple of you asked me a lot of questions on business plan, and I've been still getting questions on business plan. Can you hear me, Salim? Can you raise your hand if you can hear me? Salim, yeah, you can hear me. Thanks. Okay, so business plan. What is business plan? In simple words, business plan is a formal document containing business goals, methods, how the goals can be attained from time to time, and how it will need to be achieved. That's the simple thing. A business goal works in normal scenarios. Let's say if everything is going fine, a business plan can be working. And as I was looking at corporate India results today, this month, I was really surprised that a lot of Indian companies are still having good profits. Not a lot. Some Indian companies are having good profits. And the most spectacular set of profits which is going to come this year in the corporate world is our Zoom. That is this app that we are using. That's going to be one company which has going to have spectacular profits, and a lot of companies which are in the field of laptops, mobiles are in a booming phase across India and the world. Okay, but coming to my definition on business plan, you have it written in the form of a document, as I said, and why we write it in document terms is it is for others to understand. You know, let's say you look at a business plan of a company like Reliance Industries. I've been talking about that company for a long time in my classes, and when I was just going through an example of this company, what their business plan is, they're an established company, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to reduce their debt. And how do they reduce their debt is this business plan can come at any stage, and how they plan to reduce their debt is they reduce their debt by going for a tie-up with Facebook. They expect Facebook to pay their loans. So it's a great idea by this India's richest businessman. Okay, and it can be at any stage. But as far as students are concerned, in my previous years, I have made students submit business plans, and these business plans are really nice because some of them have an urge to be an entrepreneur. Most of you don't want to be entrepreneurs, but there are students, there are communities of people in India, like I must have told you in the last classes. There are people like communities like Gujaratis, like Marwar, like, you know, Jains. Any other community comes to any of your mind? Any other community of people in India or the world you think can be good business people? No, I don't know. I should make you guys. Sorry. Yeah, gold business. Yeah, these are very popular people in the gold business environment in India. You know, some of you have not traveled around Bangalore, in spite of being 6 months in Bangalore. Most of you don't travel around Bangalore, and in places like Bangalore, you find a lot of Marwadis, a lot of Gujjus or Gujaratis. These are people who don't send, or Jain community. You know, I had a lot of my students in my previous colleges. They used to belong to Jain community of people, and they are into big time businesses in India. And how they start businesses is they are not educated people, frankly speaking. You know, and what happens with education is most of the biggest business people I have come across in the world or in India are not people who go by the textbook definition. So what happens is they don't have a business plan also. Some entrepreneurs I have spoken to, they never had a business plan, but they had a plan that they should make profit, they should earn a livelihood. And some cases, some community of people, because of their confidence, they have become good entrepreneurs. That is, they have the support of their families, they have the support of their relatives. All these leads them to being a good entrepreneur. So as far as the textbook model is concerned, is you should have a business plan, and business plan can make it easier for you to get funding. You know, banks don't understand stories. Okay, if you or any of your classmates want to start a business, you go and tell a story to a bank that yes, I have an idea to start up a hospital, I have an idea to start up a school or a college or whatever kind of simple business, easy business, I think, or a restaurant. Banks don't give money, they need to see your business plan. And that's what I've been talking about in the last class. And that topic had a lot of subtopics. It had topics related to financial plans, related to market plans, and operation plans. How do you plan to get your money? How do you plan to, if it's an engineering project, no, question is, how do you get a technical feasibility done? You know, when they were constructing the metro in Bangalore, there were a lot of issues in constructing metros in some parts of Bangalore because what happened was this metro had to go below the what do you call important places in Bangalore, like places like Kavan Park, like Vidhansad, all these important places. This metro had to go, and the companies had a lot of pressure because they didn't want, they should not disturb the buildings in the city, and they should go with respect to this. So when you talk about technical feasibility, it only works for engineering projects. It only works in some cases. How? Because these projects can have technical specifications which can go wrong, you know, and that can create a lot of issues for businesses. Another thing is you should be aware of market feasibility. That is the number of people who are present in your country. You know, most companies in the world, they were only concerned about market feasibility when people buy my product. So they were only interested in selling their goods to countries like China, and they only thought about China in their business model. They never had any other alternative. So what happened was when China closed down, most other parts of the world were not looking interesting to them, and many companies suffered financial losses because they were only exposed to Chinese market. Okay, they were only exposed to making products in China. And what has happened is initially this pandemic was an advantage to India. Why? Because we were one of the countries which were competitors to China, and many businesses in US, in Europe, were interested in doing business with us. Okay, and you should also be aware of financial feasibility and economic feasibility. So that's about the last couple of classes. And today's class, what I should tell you is I should tell you about social entrepreneurs. So far, anybody has any questions? Anything to say, anything to ask? I have put you on mute, but you can unmute yourself if one of you want to speak. I'll ask this Christy. Christy is there. Christy, unmute him. Yeah, Christy, can you speak? Christy, you're there. Anybody wants to say something? No? Okay, we'll go to today's topic. Today's topic is on social entrepreneurs. Okay, so social entrepreneurship, how does this work? Who is a social entrepreneur, and how does social entrepreneur work? And I should also tell you about myths relating to women entrepreneurs. Okay, some of the biggest businessmen and women, men in the world are women. Okay, so that's another topic we should be aware of. And a country like India, how women entrepreneurs are important. We don't give much importance to women entrepreneurs, but in some businesses they can. But in some businesses they can be really beneficial to our companies. So, who is a social entrepreneur? That's a question. Okay. Have any of you heard of this word, social entrepreneur? Nobody? Can you raise your hand if you have heard of this word, social entrepreneur? No. Okay. So, social entrepreneur is an entrepreneur who starts his business by finding solutions to social problems. Now, these problems might look very complicated, but because the entrepreneur has the money, because the entrepreneur is a person with a lot of interest and dedication to the world problems, he finds solutions to these problems, which usually governments should find. You know, again, one example which comes to my mind is about the example of how situations like companies like Bill Gates, when he retired, what he did was he started a foundation in the name of his wife, that is Melinda Gates. And what he did was his foundation was to solve the problems in India, around the world, with respect to diseases like AIDS. And this is a non-profit social entrepreneur. Okay, he's a that's what they have done. Many social entrepreneurs can be even doing for a small profit. There are a lot of businessmen who provide services at free of cost also. But uh, the reason they do this is because they are entrepreneurs who have reached that level and who have that financial backing. As some of you might know, Bill Gates was one of the world's richest entrepreneurs. For a long time, when when we used to discuss about this subject to many of my previous students, I used to tell them that about this man, and he was a man who was in the field of entrepreneurship, running businesses successfully for a long, long time, at least in the corporate world. Okay, but recently Jeff Bezos overtook him, and what he did was, even he had, as some of you must have seen in his previous videos, even in 2015 he had predicted that the world we live in would get into social disasters like the one we are going into today. Okay, he said that the world would become so crowded, and he didn't give a solution to those problems then, but he gives solutions to many other problems across India. There are entrepreneurs. I was looking through names of social entrepreneurs in India, and most of these names are unheard of people. But the causes they solved are really great. Situations like lack of water, okay, providing affordable water in cities like Bangalore or in Delhi or major populated cities, you know, providing that at a cheap rate. That's what a social entrepreneur can do. He can also do situations wherein he's in a situation of running a business and effectively making sure that the business does profit. So social entrepreneurs do a lot of things. And that's one of the topics that you should be learning. You should also be aware of women entrepreneurs. Now, who is a women entrepreneur? Is, as you all know, it's a lady. And how do they benefit out of this? Is what government has done in India. Is this is just a Indian government, Indian business kind of project, women entrepreneurs. And again, in cities like Bangalore, we have people like Kiran Mazumdar Shah of Biocon, who is a great woman entrepreneur. Why we call her the great entrepreneur is because her company itself is worth more than $1 billion, and her assets also are worth billions of dollars. And what happens is most women don't want to come into the field of business. It's not easy to run a company. It's got its risks. It's got its headache. It's got a lot of trouble. It's got a lot of running around with managing family, work, everything. But what Indian government does is, and what many entrepreneurship associations do is, they give a lot of tax-free incentives to women. They give a lot of, you know, training to women entrepreneurs. And most Indian women entrepreneurs, in spite of me teaching this subject for some time, uh, I don't have much of examples in this subject. And the reason is because our culture itself is like that. We are not in a position to encourage. The problems are bigger in South, and most entrepreneurs, they would prefer the man run the business according to situations and culture. In some parts of India, that is the North Indian states, women might be more bold in taking up entrepreneurship, whereas in most South Indian situations, we are held up with cultural issues which deny this right of women entrepreneurs. Okay, that's one of the big problems we face as far as entrepreneurs are concerned. And another thing I need to tell you is I need to tell you about the forms of running businesses, forms of entrepreneurship. That is, how can a entrepreneur run his business under different heads? What are the legal types he can run his business as, and so on. So, as far as social entrepreneurs is concerned, is uh, these people, they solve the problems facing the society, and as I said, they can be running up their business for profit or non-profit. And when you talk about forms of entrepreneurship, that's the next topic I should teach you today. In social entrepreneurship, does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have anything to ask? There are many people whom I haven't spoken for a long time. Atul Raj is here. I'll ask him something. Atul Raj, can you speak, Atul Raj? Can you unmute yourself and speak? I have unmuted you. No. Atul Sajeev, can you speak? No. I'm not going to give attendance if you guys are not speaking. I got somebody at the end. Guna, I'll ask you something. Mm. Guna, can you speak? Because I have a doubt if people are there at times. Okay. Yeah, tell me. Do you know who is a social entrepreneur? Hmm. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So that's what I wanted to tell. Uh, so anyway, you can mute yourself now. Thanks. So I just wanted a feedback on how this is going. So in your uh, Google, you will find a lot of examples of social entrepreneurs in India. As I was going through a lot of videos this morning, Most of these people are unheard of. They don't get, one thing I've noticed is they don't get a media attention. They are unheard of people. And, but they are great entrepreneurs. They have done great jobs in the field of entrepreneurs. And because they don't make big profits, nobody really understands what they do. And in India, in the IT field, I came across a company like HCL Tech, okay, who has created his own university in Noida somewhere, North India somewhere, called Shubnadar University, and they have used their profits from the IT field to start this education process. I got a warning of 10 minutes. Okay, our very own Nazim Premji, he is also a big time social entrepreneur. But most of these people, after working in their old age, they decided I should start a business, I should get into some charitable education, I should get into some charitable business, I should invest money into this, and so on. But right now, there's a lot of youngsters also who have come into this field and who are operating with very less profits. So this is a new thought in entrepreneurship. And can a businessman think about starting a business with very less profits or no profits? That's a new thought. And countries like India, we are not very well known for philanthropy. But the Western, a lot of, if you look at countries like US, there are hundreds of entrepreneurs who have, spent their entire life working for business and donating 99% of their income to the poor, socially weak people in countries like India and so many countries around the world. So there are a lot of examples of social entrepreneurs in Western countries. And in your free time, you can read about a lot of social entrepreneurs in India. I don't want to take their names, but a couple of names which came to my mind were people like Ajit Jain and all. But they are not big time media people, so you must not have never heard of these names. They're just ordinary people, and they didn't get a lot of media attention. But that's not important. As far as entrepreneur is concerned, is if he thinks his purpose in life is to be a social entrepreneur, he can be. As far as your syllabus is concerned, this is all I should tell you. And another thing I should tell you about is forms of entrepreneurship. Some entrepreneurs, they start their business by being a sole proprietor. I was looking at this subject. There are some topics in this subject which you must have learned in the previous years when you look at some of your previous subjects. And one of the topics I saw there was this forms of entrepreneurship. In this forms of entrepreneurship, entrepreneur can start his business as a sole proprietor. He can start his business as a joint shareholding company. He can start his company as a limited company, or he can also start his business as a foreign direct investor. Again, in the last couple of months, I don't know how many of you know what has happened is I'm just trying to tell you something which is happening around the world right now. What is happening is I don't know whether you are aware of it or not, but most companies in the world today are getting bought over by Chinese companies. A lot of Indian companies are getting bought over by Chinese companies. A lot of American companies are getting bought over by Chinese companies. And why this is happening is because uh, China finds it really advantageous to buy the assets in India. Our HDFC Bank was one of the topics I was telling in the last one of the last classes. Chinese entrepreneurs, Chinese businessmen, they have bought 1% stake in this bank. And how this happened is because they cannot directly acquire an Indian company because of legal issues. So when the Indian stock prices fell, they thought they can exert their control over the Indian scenario. And sometimes what you should understand is there are entrepreneurs who use this as an advantage. And I was looking about Indian companies who also learned from this technique. The Indian companies, TCS, Wipro, and Infosys, what they have also done is they are also going to go in a big acquiring spree during this crisis. So when you learn about forms of entrepreneurship, you should understand beyond these traditional books, traditional methods like sole proprietorship, joint limited stock. If somebody asks some of you to write, you can write essays on all these things because you must have studied in the past. But if you're going to be a real entrepreneur, you should have something out of the textbook in acquiring businesses in times like this. Because this is a time when assets will be available at real cheap cost. Let's say there is a great entrepreneur in your class or maybe in somewhere in the world. What he or she should be doing is use situations like this, crisis situations like this, as opportunities on how you know the I can come across, I can purchase companies across the world, how I can improve training for my staff, how can I use these situations to turn around. That's one of the most positive things which is coming out through situations like this. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who are even become big time entrepreneurs by using networks like Zoom, okay, like using networks like FB and all, which most people would not have used, be allowed to use in their daily work life. So there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are coming up in a new generation. If some of you are interested, beyond this textbook, there are two ways to go about with this subject. Either you can study this for the exams, or you can study this as a method to earn your own income through opportunities like this, through situations like this. Uh, there has never been a time in world history when people are glued to FB, Instagram, YouTube than today. Okay, and nobody can stop you in the world. When before we could tell students don't use this, we could tell students don't use certain technology, but today nobody can stop it. It's become such that even there's a lot of doctors I am coming across the world who are practicing telemedicine today, and that's become a big industry by itself. And that's also become a big form of entrepreneurship. So there are a lot of people who are taking advantage of times like this and starting up great businesses. So as far as your textbook is concerned, these forms of entrepreneurship is you have sole entrepreneurs, you have joint stock entrepreneurs, you have limited liability companies, okay, and you have listed companies. So what should happen is traditionally you start a business as an individual, sole proprietor, right? And as time goes, these entrepreneurs they get into different methods. They get into maybe starting as a Hindu undivided family. They start getting into maybe joint stock companies. They start getting into entrepreneurship by the process of getting into a listed company. Being starting a listed company is one of the biggest and the most easiest ways to become a very rich entrepreneur. But there are problems with this. You cannot overnight start a listed company. You should be in the field of business for a long time and you should follow the government rules and regulations. So many things are there for being a listed entrepreneur. And many of the biggest entrepreneurs in the world today, they have started their business as after being a listed entrepreneur. Most entrepreneurs, if you look their pictures 20 or 30 years back, you would not believe that they could be great entrepreneurs. If you look at the current Infosys team today and how they look 30 years back, they look like some, normal working employees. They never looked like, they didn't give the image that they would be great big time entrepreneurs. So every entrepreneur, he starts with a small story. He starts with a small situation, and later on, as time goes, they end up becoming one of the biggest business people in the world. I think my time is getting out. So with today's class, uh, any questions you guys have? Vaishak, I'm seeing who's somebody is muted himself. Before I go out of touch with you guys, Sanita is she's not muted. Jinto, okay. What about your assignment? Where's your assignment? Okay. and you should read about this in the in your mobiles or laptops. You should use technology to with your syllabus. You should sit with your syllabus and technology.
Can you hear me? Okay. So with this, I'll end today's class. Have a nice day. Bye. And put your name, yeah, put your names in the group. Don't forget to do that. Mm. Yeah, bye.